Future, transportation update. Skipped right over that.
Just as a way of introduction to set this up before Mr. Henshaw kind of gets into Vicki and I and Kelly will kind of talk through this a little bit, but there's been some preliminary discussion on the budget as proposed by our new administration at the state level, and our part of that is a proposed reduction in transportation funding. And while there's an increase to the foundation formula, that reduction in transportation is realized differently throughout the state of Missouri. For example, there are school districts in the St. Louis area that don't own buses, and then there are districts in outstate Missouri like us that own significant amounts of buses and transport over 50% of their kids every day to and from school. So just kind of wanted to do a program update. I think it's really appropriate for our community to understand the comprehensive nature of our transportation program, to understand what goes into transporting students, and then what we spend budgetarily on that, and then how we would propose to move forward. Of course, next week the House takes up the budget, and so we'll know more as we roll in toward May. But just a preliminary look at in reaction to what has been proposed so far is what we would intend to do tonight. Okay.
Yes, on this slide, just to give the folks at home as well an idea, we do have 64 total number of buses that are in our fleet. Those are buses that are transporting students. We have a couple, one bus that doesn't transport students that is basically a shop on wheels. So if we have to go out and fix a bus somewhere, we have 40 regular routes, 7, as you can see there, sped routes, vocational buses, which are for the vocational programs, for example, masonry, building trades, VOAG, have a bus to transport students daily. And then we do have sub buses, and typically we will have 3 buses in the shop, and so we have to rotate sub buses in for those. And then we have 4 activity trip buses. That says 6, but it should say 4. Sorry. Just below there, you can see the miles driven annually for our district, and the number of students that we transport. So,
500,000 miles.
Relatively, we've maintained, and part of what we wanted you all to see, Nancy, if you go to the next slide, as you know, we start meeting with all our directors and our principals and we start building the budget, and it's not it's a 3, 4, 5 month process. So one of the areas that's been in the news is transportation. Right. If you'll notice, the state funding is the blue line. The maroon colored line is local funding, and then the green line is our budget. So this goes back to 09, FY 09. Our budget was just around $1.4 million, and our reimbursement from the state for transportation was just a little above $600,000. And so we wanted to show how that's been impacted over the last years on local effort has had to make up for our transportation cost as the state reimbursement has dropped. The last column to your right, the last graph is FY17. Obviously, that's an estimate FY17. Yeah. That's an estimate for the upcoming year. And currently, as Dr. Zales mentioned, the governor has said what he thinks will go in the budget. And so this is a guesstimate until the legislature's done. But we expect, if it comes to pass, his budget's accepted, somewhere around $200,000 would be state reimbursed, which, again, just ask us to continue, depending on local support, which has been fantastic, but to be able to make up that difference. And as you also know, we do budget expenditures we estimate our expenditures to always be higher. So that one looks like it's increased, but the reality is we would expect to spend a little less than what's up there on the graph.
So the blue doesn't reflect the cuts that were made for the end of this current fiscal year. It is the estimate, because we're in FY17.
Right, I'm sorry, yeah. It includes the estimates for where we'll end the year.
And what are the cuts in relation to what he has proposed for FY18? Cuts he made, I mean, or what are we going to see in the way
Does
of
that
funding?
blue even go down further? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, does the blue even go down further for FY18, or have we analyzed that yet?
I think with the withholdings that are being projected, that fiscal year 18 will be very similar to what we're seeing in 17, but I guess that's to be determined, of course.
We don't want to speculate out too far because we're just in the initial discussions reacting to what we're hearing. And so that's what we do leading up to the time we absolutely have to make budgetary decisions. We're layered over that. It's going to be discussions about staffing. If we see an uptick in formula dollars, that's a good thing, but we want to make sure people know that there might be a downturn in some other area. We'll have to. If we can't increase what we're doing transportation-wise above what we're currently doing and supporting, we obviously are not going to stop transporting students with the number of students that ride and that rely on us for a way to and from school safely. That's even though statutorily we don't have to provide transportation, that would be the wrong thing to do. And even discussing something like moving our 1 mile from the school transportation parameter to 2 miles, while it might save us money, puts a significant hardship on the families and the students that we transport. So the point is, we'll manage it. We're not complaining about anything. We're just going to make sure we're prudently reacting to what we're hearing and planning accordingly. So we hadn't had an opportunity to talk about the comprehensive nature of our transportation program, our fleet, what we use the buses for. Sometimes people assume at the beginning of the school year, well, there's a bus that just comes down the road. It just goes right by my house. Can it just stop and pick up my child? And what that means to the total program and what that means to, can't just add another route, pick up these kids in this area. We'd like to do that, but we have to look at it in total. So,
But the FY17 withholds are, there's little likelihood those will change.
yeah, correct,
So we're going to have to make that up with local dollars.
correct.
The capital or bus replacement is not included here, is that correct?
This is
That's the operating only? Okay.
And we serve 10 surrounding school districts that send us kids via school buses to us for the Career Tech Center. Any increase to their budget may impact their ability to send students to us. So it's we keep an eye on that because they're heavily reliant upon the reimbursement as well. And you'll start to see a few pieces of literature that's written by several educational organizations where there are those in those rural areas that are reacting the same way we are, just watching it. And
Aaron, do any of our sim schools, the vocational schools that come to the vocational school, are any of those 4-day
Bell,
bell? How does that affect, their participation?
Well, they'll still send the students to us on that 5th
Oh,
day.
they do?
Yeah. But there's 15 that do that now, I believe, 15 or 18. Well, it's in that range. School districts that are on the 4-day week. And whether more consider it, I have certainly read and heard that it's another tool in the toolbox, but this is my personal opinion. More time with kids is better than more time of a day and one less day.
I don't know how parents deal with it.
Yeah, that's what I would wonder, what the hardship on the parents is to have.
Well, it's the hardship on the support staff too.
Yeah.
When you do it not because it's in the best interest educationally, although
If it's the only way you can make the budget
have to
work.
make
you
it
can,
work.
you're not transporting them one day, you're not feeding them one day, you're not. Those are the folks that are hurt.
One thing we have tried to watch, Bell, I think this is their second year, is that correct? To
I think
go
it's their
forward,
third.
and we've tried to watch whether their number of students decreases simply because they'd rather have the day off than come to Raleigh. So that was one of our concerns. So I know Matt's watching those numbers from that school, but that's a decision by that district, so we just have to try to work with it.
So if we just put the number of miles just to get, as you said, kids to and from school, and you took out the activity miles, I wonder what percentage that is. What was it, 444,000?
Something like that, yeah.
We get a report.
Is around, and I think this includes some summer school miles as well, but it's about
80%?
No,
Oh, 80,000 miles.
And so with the Ozark Conference and all the activities, you know, we certainly try to plan activities so we make efficient use of. Matter of fact, that's probably, well, to a large extent, that's prompted Joplin's decision to move from the Ozark Conference and stay in that area. And I don't blame them for that. That all that discussion resurrected itself when gas prices went up.
Well, we will see an uptick in miles just because of the early childhood.
Well, we built some in the budget for early childhood.
But I mean, it will uptick.
And these numbers do not include early childhood?
Correct.
Because that's a separate funding source.
That's right, yeah.
Fully reimbursed.
Yeah.
For those groups.
Good. Anything else? We live in interesting times.
Yeah.
Board of Education future issues, 2 meetings in March, the 9th and the 23rd. You can see the remaining meetings up through the end of the school year. Call your attention to April 13th. New members, district reconfiguration.